everybody, here with some tips for your DJI Phantom to avoid crashes and landing tipovers. So with landing, I really recommend using the motor shutoff command of straight down on the left stick rather than diagonally down and right with the left stick and diagonally down and left with the right stick. I find the straight down command better for catch landings where you're not landing on the ground, just because obviously you can do the command with one hand, so you have the other hand free to actually grab onto the quadcopter. Another issue you can have, and it's happened to me a lot, I didn't even realize it until I changed commands, is you'd have a tip over when you went to shut off the motors. So using the command, you would basically slow down some of the motors so the quadcopter would start to tip, and then you'd shut off the motor, and then it would just kind of fall over. So I've also heard some stuff on the internet about people having issues where basically it was like their drone was shot down, like the motors just shut off and quadcopter fell out of the sky. And I think obviously there's a lot of different reasons that could be for that, but I think a big issue that could happen is people accidentally using the motor shutoff command, using those two diagonal shutoffs. It's a weird movement to be doing anyways, but I'm just going to go ahead and say don't even plan to do any sort of motion that requires like a down elevation, clockwise yaw, and kind of that back left movement. So another tip for avoiding crashes is doing a lot of work beforehand and making sure that you're comfortable with where you're flying and knowing where your quadcopter is at all times. So a lot of the times, if you're in a weird situation or you kind of lost sight and you're using only by first person view or something, you're going to want to go in the opposite direction that you came from because you know that that path is clear. Any sort of return to home command isn't going to be foolproof. It's not a get out of jail free card because automatically the first thing that the quadcopter is going to do is it's going to go to whatever predetermined height you programmed it to go to. And a lot of times what happens, and it's happened to me as well, is I pressed the button to return and it went up and caught some overhanging branches and that crashed. So the safest thing obviously is to try and reverse whatever direction you came from. If you're in somewhere wide open and you're completely sure that you have nothing above you, you can always go up to avoid things. Anytime you're doing a shot where you have to move really fast, you're going to want to try and give yourself just a reflex automatic. If anything goes out of control of what you thought it was, automatically say, I'm going to go up or I'm going to go bank over to the left. It's always making sure that in those times where something changes, you automatically have a response to it, as opposed to, your reaction time being down and you end up not avoiding whatever object that you didn't see was coming. Obviously, there's a lot of other conditions of just being able to have discipline with yourself to make sure that you fly only as fast as you're comfortable with, only flying as far away as you're comfortable with. It can get tricky sometimes when you're in a new location for flying and you want to keep pushing further and further and seeing how far you can go, but you have to kind of recognize after a certain point that you've got the shots you want and you don't necessarily have to keep pushing the envelope to try and find out where your failure point is, where you might crash or hit something with your drone. All that being said, I hope you guys find these tips useful. If you have any comments, there's extra things I left out, feel free to go ahead and comment below. Happy flying!